All right, Route 4 students, welcome to your mission briefing. Today, we are equipping you with a high-impact vocabulary toolkit pulled straight from your interactive companion. Now, these aren't just words on a page. Think of them as precision instruments, the kind you need to build powerful arguments and get your ideas across with total clarity. Let's jump right in. First up, we're diving into the world of big ideas. These are the absolute power words you're going to hear in serious academic discussions and important debates. Honestly, getting a handle on these is your key to not just joining in, but actually shaping the big conversations happening right now. Okay, let's start with the noun academia. Now, don't just picture a dusty old university building. Think bigger. Academia is the whole ecosystem of higher learning. It's this huge global network of brilliant minds, cutting-edge labs, and incredible libraries, all working together to push the limits of what we know. It's where big ideas are born. And what's really cool is how academia has this whole word family that gives you a ton of flexibility. You can talk about an academic paper, that's the adjective, or call a professor an academic, that's the noun. You can even track how a student is doing academically. Pay close attention to that phrase academia and industry. You'll hear it a lot because it points to that classic tug-of-war between theoretical knowledge and real-world application. Now for a verb that really makes things happen, to advocate. This is so much more than just nodding along or quietly agreeing with something. Nope. To advocate is to get out there and publicly, passionately fight for an idea or a policy. Think about all the great activists who advocated for civil rights, or the scientists right now who advocate for new environmental policies. It's a true call to action. And here's a really important distinction you need to get. You have the person and you have the practice. An advocate, that's the noun for the person, is the champion, the one leading the charge. But advocacy, that's the noun for the concept, is the actual work they do. So you could become a strong advocate for a cause. And all your hard work, your research, your presentations, that would be your advocacy. Okay, let's switch gears and jump into the digital world. This next section is your digital toolkit. We're going to arm you with the must-know vocabulary for talking about the fast-moving world of modern tech. Our first tool is the noun algorithm. The best way to think about it is like a recipe for a computer, but instead of baking a cake, it's a super precise step-by-step list of instructions that tells a computer exactly what to do, whether that's sorting your email, finding the fastest route home, or figuring out what movie you should watch next. You're literally interacting with hundreds of them every single day. You know, getting comfortable with the other forms of this word is how you really start to sound like you know your stuff. You can describe a process as being algorithmic, that's the adjective. Or you can say a problem was solved algorithmically, step by step. And you will see it constantly with machine learning algorithms. Those are the engines driving so much of modern AI. All right, let's tackle a big one, blockchain. This word gets thrown around a lot, but at its heart, it's just a new kind of digital notebook or ledger. So what makes it so special? Two things, security and transparency. Every transaction is copied across tons of computers, which makes it almost impossible to cheat the system. And everyone on the network can see what's going on. It's a system that builds trust using technology. What's interesting is that you'll often see blockchain acting almost like an adjective. It's because it's describing a specific type of technology. When you say blockchain technology, you're immediately telling someone that it's decentralized, it's secure, and it's transparent. It's all baked into the word. Okay, let's move from the tools of tech to the principles of great teamwork. This section is all about the words that describe the how. How incredible results and successful projects actually happen. We're going to kick things off with a huge one, the noun collaboration. This is more than just working in the same room as someone. It's about actively creating something together, blending different skills and viewpoints to build something totally new that no one could have made on their own. So here you can see the whole family in action. You use the verb to collaborate with your team. The project you're working on is collaborative. That's the adjective. And that phrase, collaboration across sectors, is so important. It describes that magic that happens when totally different fields, like, say, art and computer science, team up to solve a big problem. Next up, we have the adjective consistent. This word is all about being reliable and dependable, in the best possible way. A consistent brand always feels the same, which builds trust. A consistent athlete delivers a great performance every single time, building a reputation for excellence. It's quality you can actually count on. And this just shows you the different ways we can talk about it. The noun is consistency. That's the quality you're aiming for. And when you work consistently, that's the adverb, you start to achieve consistent results. This is a cornerstone of pretty much any great achievement, from science to sports. Okay, get ready for a vocabulary superpower. It's the suffix centric. This little ending is amazing because it lets you build your own words. You just stick it on the end of a noun and bam, you've made a new adjective that means focused on whatever that noun was. It's like a word-building Lego piece. Look how simple this is. You pick your focus, let's say human. You add the suffix centric, and you get human-centric, a whole design philosophy that's all about putting people first. The possibilities here are just endless. You can have a data-centric business strategy, a customer-centric service model, a planet-centric approach. What other centric words can you come up with? All right, for our final section, we're putting it all into action. We've covered big ideas and principles. Now it's time for the power verbs. These are the words that help you take those brilliant ideas and turn them into something real. Think of this as your quick start guide to 4 must-have action verbs. So, to accomplish is to succeed at something tough. To deploy means to roll out a new technology or system. To embed is to build a value or an idea so deeply into a system that it just becomes part of it. And to audit is to officially check on a process to make sure it's working right. Now, let's see how they work in the wild. See, you don't just accomplish, you accomplish a goal. You don't just deploy, you deploy technology. You work to embed your team's values, and you audit a system to improve it. Using these specific phrases just makes your language so much more precise and powerful. And our last word for today is a really important one, the adjective concrete. This is the perfect cure for vague, fuzzy ideas. A concrete plan isn't just a wish. It has specific steps, clear details, and you can actually act on it. Abstract ideas are hard to grab onto, but concrete ideas are things you can actually build with. So from now on, anytime you need to be super clear and convincing, reach for the word concrete. You need to give concrete examples to make your point, you have to present concrete evidence to back up your argument, and you should always start a new project with a concrete plan. It's how you get things done. Okay, now it's over to you. Because this isn't about just listening, right? It's about doing. So here's my challenge. I want you to actively deploy this new vocabulary this week. In your classes, in your emails, when you're talking to your friends, how can you use these words to make what you say more powerful and precise? And here's a quick example of how you can weave these words together. See how it flows? Let's draft a concrete plan for our next collaborative project. Just combining a few of them creates a message that is so much clearer and more compelling. Now it's your turn. Go build some powerful sentences of your own.
Hello, Root 4 students, and welcome to this Vocabulary Companion. You know, some words just describe the world around us, but other words, they build it. They're the words people use to launch companies, run countries, and spark real change. Today, we're diving into those words. Let's get right to it.
So let's kick things off with a huge question. How do you actually do it? How do you take a massive idea, say a new piece of technology or a big policy to protect the environment, and turn it into something real? Where do you even start?
Well, the answer might surprise you. It all starts with having the right words. Think of them like tools in a toolkit. You need the right vocabulary to build your vision, to outline your plan, and to define what you stand for.
All right, for our first act, let's talk about the language of action and control. Imagine for a second that you're in charge of a big project. You've got to make things happen and you've got to do it right. To do that, you're going to need a very specific set of word tools.
The very first tool you'll probably reach for is the verb to regulate. To regulate something just means you're setting up the official rules for it. Think about artificial intelligence. Before AI gets integrated into everything, governments have to regulate how it's used to make sure it's safe and fair for everyone.
And this word is a bit of a shapeshifter. The action is the verb to regulate, but the rules themselves, that's the noun regulations. And the whole system of rules is often called a regulatory framework. You'll hear these words all the time when new tech comes along.
Okay, so you've done it. You've written up a brilliant set of regulations. They're all there on paper. But, rules on a piece of paper don't actually do anything by themselves. So what comes next?
You have to implement them. This is such a powerful verb. To implement means you're putting your plan into actual motion. It's the bridge that takes you from just an idea to something happening in the real world. You don't just have a new policy, you implement that policy.
And the process itself is the noun, implementation. So if you're a project manager, your main job is the successful implementation of the plan. It's an absolutely key concept for actually getting things done.
So the rules are being implemented, things are happening. Great, but you can't just set it and forget it. Someone needs to oversee the whole process. And this verb, to oversee, means you're supervising, you're managing, you're watching from above to make sure everything is on the right track.
Yep, to oversee something is literally to keep a close, watchful eye on it. The noun form, oversight, is so important. Without good oversight, even the best plans can go completely off the rails.
This all brings up a really important question for anyone in a leadership role. When you're overseeing something complex, what's the best approach to take? How should you be thinking?
The best answer is to be proactive. This is a fantastic adjective. Being proactive means you don't just sit around and wait for problems to pop up and then scramble to fix them. No, you think ahead, you anticipate issues, and you take action to stop them before they even start. It is the exact opposite of being reactive.
So you can act proactively. That's the adverb form. And honestly, taking a proactive approach is just plain smart. It saves a ton of time, a ton of money, and avoids so many headaches later on.
So why are we doing all of this? I mean, why go to all the trouble of regulating and implementing and being proactive? It all comes down to one verb: to ensure. To ensure is to make absolutely certain that something will happen. It's about guaranteeing an outcome.
See, all those actions we talked about, the regulating, the implementing, the overseeing, they're all connected by this one single goal: to ensure the project is safe and successful. But successful for who exactly? Well, for all the stakeholders.
And that brings us to the last word in this section, the noun stakeholder. A stakeholder is basically anyone who has a stake or an interest in what's happening. And this is a really broad term. It's not just the investors with the money. It's the employees, the customers, the local community. Heck, it's anyone who is affected by the project. They're all stakeholders.
Okay, time to shift gears for Act 2. We've talked about how to manage and control a project. Now let's get into the language of building a business, the vocabulary of creating value and driving growth.
A word you absolutely have to know in modern business is the verb to monetize. Put simply, it just means to turn something into money. Ever wonder how those free social media apps make their billions? Simple. They find ways to monetize the huge amounts of user data they collect. That whole process is called monetization. That's the noun. And trust me, companies are always brainstorming new methods of monetization. It's a really powerful and sometimes pretty controversial idea.
Now, to really understand how data gets monetized, we need to look at an old word that's been given a totally new life: harvest. This can be a noun or a verb. And, traditionally it's all about farming, collecting crops from a field.
But the tech world completely borrowed this word. Today, we talk about data harvesting, which is the process of collecting huge amounts of user information. It's a really vivid metaphor, right? It frames our data as a new kind of crop, just waiting to be gathered up.
And what do you get from a good harvest? You get a good yield. The noun, yield, is just the amount of something that's produced. On a farm, it's how much corn you get per acre.
But the idea of yield goes way beyond farming. In the world of business and finance, the yield on an investment is your profit. So in a way, a farmer in a field and a banker on Wall Street are both chasing the exact same thing: a really high yield. This brings up a pretty fascinating question. What happens when one company's data harvest is so massive and their financial yield is so profitable that nobody else can even compete with them?
Well, what you get is a monopoly. This noun describes a situation where one single company has total and complete control over a market. I'm sure you know the word from the board game, but in the real world, monopolies can be a serious problem, which is why governments often step in to regulate them.
So what's the ideal situation? What's the opposite of a market that's stuck under a monopoly? It's a flourishing economy. This is a great adjective. It describes something that's growing and thriving in a really healthy and successful way. It's what we hope for in a business, a society, or even in our own personal lives.
Okay, for our third and final act, let's zoom out. We've covered the words for taking action and for building a business. Now let's talk about the big picture ideas, the guiding principles behind all those decisions.
Some decisions are just bigger than others. They're not just important today, they are momentous. This adjective describes an event or decision that is incredibly important because of the huge impact it's going to have on the future. It has a real sense of historical weight to it.
And just think about it for a second. The decision to regulate a brand new industry like AI, that's momentous. A company's choice to start monetizing its user data, absolutely momentous. These aren't small, everyday choices. They can fundamentally change the future for all of us.
So, when you're facing one of these momentous decisions, what should be your guide? What's your North Star? The answer is the noun ethics. Ethics are the moral principles we use to figure out the difference between what's right and what's wrong.
So what does this look like in the real world? Well, ethical action is protecting your users' data, not exploiting it. It's encouraging fair competition, not trying to build a harmful monopoly. It's being honest and transparent with all of your stakeholders.
In practice, companies apply ethics through things like a code of ethics or ethical guidelines. The adjectives, of course, are ethical or unethical. And today, one of the biggest conversations happening everywhere is about the ethics of AI, which brings us right back to our very first word, regulate. See? It all comes full circle.
So there you have it. We've looked at the words of action, the words of growth, and the words of principle. But these aren't just things to memorize for a test. They are the building blocks. They're the architectural plans for the future. And that really just leaves one final question for you. Now that you have the tools, what kind of world are you going to build?